public anxiety that has indeed gripped many parts of the country was last week Friday put to rest, and I'm talking all issues relating to the teacher recruitment for 2023 as well as the year 2024. And exciting to note that we also saw an overwhelming number of about 69,000 or more applicants applying just to be recruited under the teacher recruitment, and about 7,221 were those that were recorded against the background or against the number that was 4,500 to be recruited. And we'll be talking so much more on teacher recruitment as well as issues pertaining to what the teaching fraternity would want to actually be worked on. Welcome to it. This is the Monday edition of the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. On a Monday, I'm your host, Nelson Zula, and we're coming live to you via our Facebook platform, Top Star, that is channel 106, God TV channel 25, DSTV channel 274, and not forgetting we're coming also live to you on our YouTube platform. And right about now we go direct into our first segment this morning, which is the Health Corner, and we get to see what the doctors do have for us. Otherwise, stay back, relax, and we have an exciting show just for you.
Hi, good morning and welcome to the Health Corner here on the Breakfast Show. My name is Dr. Nakuyana Mufaya. So this week we are going to talk about a very common diarrheal disease. It's a condition that is very common amongst us. It's more of an endemic amongst in our communities. So we'll talk about typhoid fever. So I'm sure most of you have heard about typhoid fever. You probably have gone to the hospital and you've been told that you have typhoid. So this week we want to understand exactly what is typhoid and also how it comes about, and some of the signs and symptoms of a patient that has typhoid. And we also want to know how is it diagnosed in the hospital and how can you prevent yourself from getting this condition of typhoid. So today we'll discuss what is typhoid. Typhoid is a diarrheal disease, as we have mentioned. It's caused by a bacteria, and this bacteria is called Salmonella. Now Salmonella, there are two types, most of them that cause typhoid, two major types. There's the Salmonella typhi and the Salmonella paratyphi. So these two bacteria are the ones that cause typhoid, and usually it's gotten from the fecal oral route. By that I mean somebody has to ingest it from their food. So it's shed through the feces, and if someone has not washed their hands and they have touched food and then they ingest that food that is contaminated, then they would get the bacteria, which will attack the immune cells in the intestines. So it attacks the lining of the intestines, and in the lining of the intestines we find some immune cells. So those cells will be attacked, and eventually they will start, the bacteria will make the immune cells to start producing more of the bacteria itself. So as the bacteria multiplies, that is how come you start getting these symptoms of being sick. So usually it takes about 7 to 14 days before you can start having any symptoms. We call that period the incubation period. So it's a period where the body is still producing more of the bacteria and it's still infecting your body until at a time when it starts manifesting in different ways and you start having symptoms of typhoid. So this typhoid can as we have said, it can cause damage to the intestines, and sometimes the damage can be so severe such that it can cause perforation. So by perforation, we are talking about causing a leakage in the intestine. So your intestines can have end up having a hole or a perforation, and some fluids from the intestines can start leaking into the abdomen, the overall abdomen. So that's one of the complications of this typhoid. So it's important that we know exactly how it comes about, and we know how we can prevent it, and also know the symptoms, so that once you see yourself having these symptoms, or know somebody who is having these symptoms, then you quickly rush them to the hospital where they can get treatment. So make sure you watch the other episodes this week, where we'll talk more about typhoid. I hope you have learned something today. If you want to learn more about other topics, make sure you watch my YouTube channel, which is Dr. Nakubena Mfaya, on YouTube and also on Facebook. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Facebook at Dr. Nakubena Mfaya. I'll see you next time. Stay blessed and stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nakubena Mufwaya, right there with the topic typhoid fever. Hopefully you got to learn one or two things, for it is very important to keep safe and ensure that we follow all the health guidelines, given the fact that we are under a pandemic, that is the cholera outbreak that we've seen, also with numbers continuing to surge, and also interventions coming through with certain places being closed, such as nightclubs, such as dump sites, the latest one being that of Patuka dump site in Chawama constituency here in Lusaka. And it is also interesting to see that certain measures also are being taken, such as restrictions in terms of the number of people that get to attend a funeral for one who was departed, and it is as a result of the said disease. But right about now, let's get to look at how the kwacha is faring this morning against the major convertibles, and that's a segment we call the money market. There you have it on your screen. The United States dollars is buying at 26 kwacha 0.67 ngwe and selling at 27 kwacha 0.20 ngwe. The euro is buying at 28 kwacha 0.98 ngwe and selling at 29 kwacha 0.55 ngwe. The South African rand is buying at 1 kwacha 0.42 ngwe, selling at 1 kwacha 0.45 ngwe, and the Great British Pound is buying at 33 kwacha 0.96 ngwe and selling at 34 kwacha 0.62 ngwe. And if you ask me, the major concern is going to be on the aspect of the dollar, because almost each and every transaction that we shall make here in Zambia, we'll see that the dollar will come into effect. We'll see that business men and women are going to tell you that dollar yakwela, so there's need for also myself to adjust in terms of the pricing of the commodity. But we hope for the best. We hope things get to stabilize, because as it is, this raises a lot of concerns, as we know even for a fact that the country's annual inflation rate, as announced last week by the Zambia Statistics Agency, we saw it rise from 13.1% to 13.2%, which is also of worry. And we continue to keep our hands tied and crossed to ensure that we keep that positive energy and look at the better things of it. What are we able to do even in these trying moments? Is there a solution that can be put on the table to ensure that we've got better services being offered, both for you and I, because we're all major stakeholders as it is. And here's a time now that we also get to open our phone lines. You too can come through with your contribution in terms of fusing us in with what is happening within your community, as well as issues relating to the stories that we're going to be reading out to you in the Zooming Headlines segment. And just talking about the Zooming Headlines segment, we get to look at one of the first stories this morning that came through from the former President Edgar Lungu, who has urged the church to pray for politicians who are in the habit of lying. Mr. Lungu notes that lying and deceit among some politicians has become rampant, hence the need for the clergy to intervene with prayer. The former head of state has also called on the church to pray for true reconciliation in the country. He was speaking when he addressed congregants at the Reformed Church of Zambia in Matero Congregation in Lusaka Sunday. We get to look at that story, and later on, if you've got a contribution or a say to that story, you can fuse us in as we get to await to have our main interview this morning with the Zambia National Union of Teachers, who are just going to also help us understand a lot of issues in terms of the teacher recruitment, the grade 12 results that were published as of last week, and all other issues that might be pressing in as far as the teaching fraternity might be concerned. But right about now, let's get to look at that story coming from the former head of state.
But out of respect, you just say, and I'm saying so, emphasizing on this aspect of Goza, because the culture of lying in Zambia. Yeah. So it's libe. So it's libe. Even if someone saw the culture, why you want to be so kubanja? So, Apusa, Magabambi, the Mamrum, the other guy come part in the politics. So, church be released who put some banja. Church. So that's why the body was here. I mean, the phone now. You know what I'm about? Chikondi. Kurukidana. Reconciliation. Unity. Charity. So that we have a Zambia which is full of people with the right values. Ule mkubakulu kutoka kunyumba church. Then we have community. So there's one point of money.
The former president right there with a call for the church to pray for politicians within the country, as he alleges that there's a habit of lying. But anyway, that's a comment that you can, that's a story rather, that you two, wherever you're getting us live from, can give us a contribution, can give us your perspective in terms of what the former president was saying. And remember that he was addressing congregants at a church. And for some time we've had concerns of why should politicians be given the mandate to even say something in front of the church. But these are also concerns that have powered up to say, you see, even politicians themselves, they're human beings. So when they go to church, they should also be given the platform or the need to say one or two. But you never know, and you never have control of what they're going to say. So what should be the right thing in terms of addressing politicians, especially when they come to your church? Do you give them the platform to say something while it's there? But hey, there you have it. That's a story that was coming through from yesterday's bulletin. And we also get to look at a story where Socialist Party National Youth spokesperson Stanley Mubasa has challenged government through the Lusaka City Council Public Health Department to sensitize people on the importance of maintaining high standards of hygiene. He says the local authority should not wait until there is an outbreak, noting that it is expensive to treat than to prevent. Since October last year, the country has recorded over 15,000 cases of cholera with over 550 deaths. We get to look at that story.
Cholera has so far claimed 575 lives since October last year, out of 15,302 cases that have been recorded in the same period. According to the latest update by Minister of Health, Sofia Masevo, the country has in the last 24 hours recorded 397 new cases of the disease with 14 deaths.
Of the 397 new cases which we have recorded countrywide in the past 24 hours, 281 cases were in Lusaka. province. Further, 210 cases of these were recorded in Lusaka district. As of 6 hours this morning, our largest cholera treatment center, which is at the Hero Stadium, had a total of 323 patients in admission compared to 281 patients which we had in admission yesterday. Countrywide, we have again recorded 14 deaths in the past 24 hours. 11 of these were from Lusaka province, 2 from Central province, 1 from the Copper Belt, and 1 from Southern province.
The high number of cases recorded in recent weeks has prompted education authorities to postpone the reopening of schools countrywide, not once, but twice.
The Ministry of Education was guided to further postpone the opening date to 12 February 2024.
In view of this, Socialist Party National Youth spokesperson Stanley Mubasam has challenged government through the Lusaka City Council's Public Health Department to sensitize people on the importance of maintaining high standards of hygiene to avoid disease outbreaks in future. Mr. Mubasa says the local authority should not wait until there is an outbreak, noting that it is expensive to treat than it is to prevent.
The issue of sensitizing the general public, which I think that government has not done its part, should have been a top priority. If you are not going to sensitize the general public, you simply, do it when it's rainy season. It's going to be very difficult to control the pandemic, the outbreak, or cholera as it were. What they need to do is, for example, the Lusaka City Council has got a department that looks at matters of health. And one of their responsibilities and duties is to go flat out into the compounds and educate people on how to control cholera and how to avoid cholera. Those are key issues that they need to address. So if you educate these people, you educate these citizens, at least they'll be able to understand on the best ways of fighting cholera. And not just giving them, the medications when they are sick. I think you spend more, but when you educate them, you sensitize them, you end up even spending less.
Vincent Piri for Camnet TV News, Lusaka.
Talking all issues of the cholera outbreak, we also get to look at another story from the National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia, NUPES, who has called for collaborative efforts between citizens and government to curtail the cholera outbreak. NUPES Executive President Victor Muyumba says the disease needs to be brought under control to prevent further postponement of school opening dates. He, however, disclosed that the union was of the view that schools were supposed to be opened amidst the outbreak to keep pupils away from the affected communities. I don't know what your say is on that particular story, but let's get to look at this story and I'll be back on the other side.
The National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia, NUPES, has received the further postponement of schools due to the cholera outbreak with mixed reactions. Government, through the Minister of Education, Douglas Siakalima, on Wednesday announced further postponement of the opening date of schools and colleges from January 29, 2024 to February 12, 2024. Reacting to the development, NUPES Executive President Victor Muyumba says the union was of a different view on the matter.
But when you say schools have resumed, you are keeping them busy in school. Even the kind of bathrooms, should I say toilets, that they access in school are relatively cleaner than the toilets at home. So you are somehow confining them. That's why we were of the view that schools should have opened on the 29th January.
Mr. Muyumba since called on authorities and members of the public to partner and ensure that no further postponement of schools is experienced.
Another postponement is going to completely collapse the planning. The school calendar is going to be disturbed. So we hope by 12th January, schools would have been ready and the number of cholera cases for those that are patients and also those that are dying would have reduced. We pray that by then schools would have intensified the cleanliness of the bathrooms or toilets and that each and every classroom has got a wash point. We need to ensure that each and every classroom has a wash point. Not only a wash point, but a wash point with antiseptic soap.
Meanwhile, the country in the last 24 hours has recorded 14 cholera deaths, 397 cases, bringing total cases to 15,302. 61 people remain in admission, 364 discharged in the last 24 hours, bringing the total discharge to 14,050 since the outbreak commenced in October 2023. For Camnet TV News, Afias Kaptula, Lusaka.
The outbreak of cholera has indeed seen a lot of businesses also come to their knees rather, as well as also some sectors are being affected, being the education sector, where we've seen that government has also did take a step to ensure that they postpone the reopening of schools. And we've seen the national private and public educators of Zambia in Nupezi indicating that it was not a good idea to close to further postpone the reopening of schools in the country, simply because he feels that the pupils are still going to be exposed to communities that are prone to the outbreak. So it should have been very prudent that these pupils are actually kept away from these communities to ensure that their safety is guaranteed. We also got to look at a story that came through from the Socialist Party that are saying the Lusaka City Council, or rather the local authorities in the country, have played a downturn role in terms of ensuring that there's much sensitization that is given to the general members of the public, and ensure that there's a great understanding of the current outbreak of cholera. And we also got to look at a story from the former President Edgar Lungu, who was addressing congregants yesterday in Matero, where he did indicate or called on the church to ensure that they pray for politicians in the country under the allegations that there's a lot of lying that goes on. So there's need to ensure that there's a culture that is promulgated to ensure that everyone moves at a speed where truth is the order of the day. But those are some of the stories that we've played thus far. You can also give us your contribution in terms of those stories that we've played, as well as what you think should be the actual position, because we've seen that a lot of people are reacting in terms of the outbreak of the cholera pandemic that hit the country in 2023 as of October. And we also saw a lot of talk on the need to get to politicians to respect church and everything. But hey, before we even get to go further, let's get to pick this call. Good morning.
Morning.
Tell us your name and where you're calling us from. Okay, you may go ahead with your contribution. Yes, the opening of schools, you may go ahead with your contribution. I'm able to get you loud and clear. Hello? Okay, it seems we've lost that phone call. But yeah, you too can also make attempts to get in touch with us. One of the stories that we looked at was talking about the postponement of schools to a later date, of which some stakeholders such as Nupez feel the decision was not made in good faith. There should have been a step that should have been taken to ensure that everyone gets to have an equal share in terms of how the issue was supposed to be handled. And later on, I think in my preamble, I did mention that concerns also continue to pile up when it comes to the issue of the country's economic situation. And one of the stories that we got to do over the weekend was an organization that advocates for the right to adequate food and nutrition. FIAN International Zambia has predicted that the increasing country's inflation rate will impact the nutrition status of the country. Organization country coordinator Vladimir Chilinya is worried that the key interventions are not being put in place to cushion the inflation rate, which is posing a threat to the country's nutrition. Meanwhile, an economist, Emmanuel Zulu, proposed the need for the government to be proactive in implementing policies that respond to the country's economic challenge. That's one of the stories that we did. And speaking about issues relating to the economy, we also do understand that roads do play a very important role in ensuring that the aspect of commerce is actually well segmented. And we also get to look at a story that was done by one of our colleagues in Garden Compound, where residents of Lusaka's Garden Township have called on authorities to improve road infrastructure in the area. Speaking during a community meeting, Richard Mutale says the government, through the council, should construct a permanent road. And area councillor Adrian Banda assured the resident that the government has approved the construction of the road. We get to look at those two stories and we'll be back on the other side. Zambia's annual inflation rate has continued to hike for the 7th month to hit 13.2% in January 2024, the highest since February 2022, up from 13.1% in the preceding month, mainly on the backdrop of a weakening kwacha. As of Friday 26 January 2024, the dollar was trading at 27 kwacha, 20 ngwe, the highest so far in at least 5 years. As the country finds itself in economic hardships, an organization that advocates for the right to adequate food and nutrition, FIEN International Zambia, has predicted that the increasing country's inflation rate will impact the nutrition status of the country. Country coordinator Vladimir Chilinya says this is against the backdrop that the country has for some time experienced gaps in handling malnutrition cases. He proposes the need to have short and medium-term solutions to address the current economic hardships, such as the cost of living, to ensure homes in the country are safe from malnutrition.
The fact is that people will no longer be able to afford food when we talk about good nutrition, because they are spending so much money on a lot of things which they shouldn't actually have. And if you also look at the food items, even basic food items that are required for people's nutrition, people are spending more than what they could spend because inflation has gone up. But the impact of this is that at the household level, it's actually worsening the already hunger situation, worsening the already food crisis, and more worsening the country's nutrition at the country level and also at the household level. But regrettable is that we don't see so much interventions actually by the government to ensure that they combat the rising levels of malnutrition in the country.
Meanwhile, an economist, Emmanuel Zulu, says the increasing inflation rate calls for urgent measures from the government that will help cushion the effects of the increase.
Consider is the policies of the central bank, the monetary policy from the central bank. Of course, they have pursued a contraction of monetary policy for quite some time, but at this particular time when the currency is losing value on a daily basis, I think one would question if at all there could be room for the central bank to offload some reserves so that we're able to cushion, citizens, against this depreciating currency for a particular period, even as we, look out for a solution around debt restructuring. So I think that is an immediate, intervention that we might see, and that might also see the inflation rate, scaling down.
In simple terms, the inflation rate is defined as the general increase in prices of goods and services over time. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka.
Garden Chilulu Road, one of the busiest roads in Lusaka's Garden Compound, has in the last 3 years been in a deplorable state. Motorists and members of the community have complained about the state of the road on numerous occasions. Until date, no tangible progress has been made. The road is heavily flooded during the rainy season, making it impassable for small vehicles. Saturday 27th January 2024, the community members of Garden Ngwere Ward 22 held a meeting with area councillor Adrian Banda to discuss the way forward concerning the construction of the Garden Machinji Road. Residents have called on government to construct a road with better drainage systems that will stand the test of time.
Which means temporary measure because for next month yalapwa. So ocho ninga chitasa just vakansira chakova tukupitira muri imwe waturombera kwati iya road temporary measure veretapo vakanso varetapo ve permanent road because temporary yala ona futi ndala mashimbi
achitiratu kutoka kushimizu kufika na kuma sewage na drainage system vavakileki so ngati kuli vinangu vakuti afu bambe bayimirire first.
However, Area Councillor Adrian Banda has assured Guerrero Ward 22 that the road will be worked on before the end of 2024.
We are here to give you an update and an assurance that this road shall be done this year. Yes. The New Dawn government will work on this road this year after rains. I went there and they showed me the contract to say once it's done, the resources are there. That's really different is going to expand the road.
A good road network ensures consistent and reliable transportation for everyone regardless of the mode of transport. Cherish Sibote. For Camnet News, Lusaka.
Introducing Kapi Lodges Cafe, a beautiful place to spend your night. At Kapi Lodges, we have affordable and comfortable rooms to meet your expectations. We are located along Kafue Road, Shimabala area. For more details, contact us on +260 979 476307 or +260 976 057123 or +260 764 700 003. Email kapilodges@gmail.com. Kapi Lodges, my second comfort, home.
Thank you so much for still staying with us, and just like I did indicate earlier on that we shall have a conversation with the Zambia Union of Teachers just to get their perspective in terms of the plight of teachers in Zambia as well as what is happening in the country's education sector. But even before we get to dive into that interview, we know for a fact that on Friday, government through the Ministry of Education did announce the results for the grade 12 examinations that were undertaken in the year 2023, and we get to look at that story just right after we get into our main interview this morning. Stay tuned. The Examination Council of Zambia has nullified and withheld results for 620 candidates who sat for the 2023 grade 12 examinations. Out of the 620 candidates, 384 candidates had their results nullified, with 3 candidates' results nullified in all subjects, while 381 candidates had results nullified in all affected subjects. Meanwhile, 236 candidates' results have been withheld pending investigations. The Examination Council of Zambia has also withdrawn the examination center status for North Park GCE Examination Center of Central Province and David Makina GCE Center of Copperbelt Province due to recurring examination malpractices. This came to light when Minister of Education Douglas Yakalima announced the 2023 grade 12 results alongside the teacher education examination in early childhood and primary and secondary teachers diploma. 111,116 pupils out of 163,408 who sat for the 2023 grade 12 examination obtained certificates, while 48,833 candidates obtained statements of result and 3,354 candidates failed the exam.
63,408 candidates and 11,116 obtained school certificates, representing a decrease of 1.26 percentage points from 69 0.29% in 2022. Further, a total of 448,803 candidates obtained statements of results and 3,354 candidates failed the examination, while 3,093 candidates were absent from the examination, comprising 1,575 boys and 1,518 girls.
Meanwhile, the Examination Council of Zambia, ECZ, disclosed that in a bid to have malpractice-free exams, the council resolved to have all erring schools penalized.
We take note, Honorable Minister, that there are a few schools that were involved in mass examination malpractices, and we have recommended to you for withdrawal of center status. And the council, that is the board of the Examinations Council of Zambia, decided that those center statuses be withdrawn as a way of ensuring that we continue to maintain a high integrity in our education system and in our examination results. We still want to indicate, Honorable Minister, that at school certificate level, we have continued for the second time to conduct the examinations in South Africa.
The total number of candidates who sat for the 2023 Grade 12 examinations and obtained full certificates represented 68.03% pass rate, a decrease of 1.26% from 69.29% in 2022. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka. Thank you so much for still staying tuned to Camnet TV. And in case you're joining us, this is the Monday edition of the Breakfast Show with me, Nelson Zulu. And just right about now, I'm joined by Director of Public Relations under the Zambia National Union of Teachers, and abbreviated as ZANUT, in Mr. Godwin Maseka. Good morning, Mr. Maseka.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us, and I would say Happy New Year to you, because I believe this is the first time we're hosting you during this year.
Happy New Year too, and good morning, viewers.
Well, first thing first, let's get to react to what we saw under the Grade 12 results. We saw a number of things coming out, such as cases of malpractice, as well as erring schools that were suspended in terms of their examination centers, as well as the issue relating to the absenteeism rate. Your reaction as Zambia National Union of Teachers?
Thank you so very much, Camnet, for giving a voice to Zambia National Union of Teachers, to add a voice. First and foremost, when we are talking about exams are intended to evaluate your ability and how you have actually put in terms of what you expect the learners at the end of the day. And therefore, what we see as an outcome during the exams represents exactly what is it that the teachers put in and what is it that they have harvested in terms of what has come out of the exams. And looking and considering the announcement made by the Honorable Minister of Education, we see that first and foremost there is a reduction in the pass percentage from last year to this year to a tune of about 1.2. That reduction speaks volume, because when you are talking about 1.2% of 1,000, that's not a small number. That's a big number in reality, and therefore it brings cause for worry. And looking at what Dr. Chilala, Director Examination, announced regarding the malpractices that were experienced, surrounded by well-schemed strategy by certain schools in order for them to come out as champions, speaks volume of the ill intentions and lowering the integrity of the education sector. And all we can say as ZANUT is that would want to actually also express happiness that the rate of malpractice is not as rampant as it used to be. Examination Council and its board is doing everything possible to ensure that we reduce the rate of malpractice, which is actually going to promote the integrity that the ministry desires.
I know we're under an outbreak of cholera, and a lot of teacher unions have come on board and given their perspective in terms of the further closure of the schools in terms of reopening to the 12th of February 2024. And a lot of those have raised concerns to say, look, we should have opened rather than closing further, simply because we're going to lose a lot of time. Are you of the same view that we're going to lose a lot of time and pupils are going to be exposed to communities that are prone to this outbreak?
Thank you so very much. First and foremost, we must be looking at what is it that we are talking about when we talk about cholera. Cholera is a lethal disease which has claimed so many lives. Whether it is one life or many, the reality of the matter is that any loss regarding life is supposed to be considered quite important. And therefore, what has transpired vis-a-vis the readjustment of the opening dates by the Minister of Education should be commended. We saw the rising cases of cholera deaths represent or showing us that indeed, if we were to open schools at the time the date was announced, we would have experienced a situation where the spreading was going to be at a higher level. What we must know as a country is that learners move from one place of Zambia to another just to go and access education. We have a good number of learners who are going into boarding schools in Northern Province, Northwestern, Muchinga, Eastern, Southern, and if they are coming from the epicenter, that is Lusaka, would have experienced more or less like these learners were going to be vectors of transmitting the disease called cholera. So the adjustment is not in bad faith, but it's in good faith, and we commend the Ministry of Education. Now, coming to the question, the adjustment definitely is going to cause a little bit of some disturbance in the curriculum, but what we must appreciate is that it's better we have life than having none at all. One thing that we must appreciate is that what gain are we going to say we should have opened early and subject a good number of learners dying, including teachers?
Some of the teacher unions that have argued have said, look, there's no need for us to even postpone the further dates to reopening these schools, simply because we've seen that our schools themselves, they don't even have a proper infrastructures when we talk about hygiene as well as sanitation.
Yes, one thing that we must understand is that the government has actually sent in what we refer to as grants to all the schools. Now, these grants are meant to ensure that we prepare the environments in all the schools to ensure that schools become habitable. Cholera is a disease that is to deal with hygiene, and therefore, the monies that the government sent to the schools have been put to good use to ensure that chlorine and the water points, all those things that are needed in order for us to keep cholera are put in place. I'm sure at the time we are now going to open, you'll be able to see that adequate measures have actually been put in place. And for your own information, the ministry through Department of Standards actually intensified to go around the schools to go and check to find out how habitable these schools are, in particular boarding schools. So as a labor movement, in particular Zambia National Union of Teachers, our clarion call still remains that to all responsible officers, these are head teachers, more especially in boarding schools, let's ensure that water reticulation is at 100%. Let us ensure that we spend these monies wisely to ensuring that whatever may disturb the calendar again is abated. And we are aware, and we have equally done inspection through the Department of Research to ascertain how ready the schools are, and we hope and trust that come 12th of February, schools will be ready and it will be good to go.
We're delving into the conversation with the Zambia Union of National Teachers, Zanut. We're just here to help us understand the plight of teachers in Zambia, fully knowing that there's a lot that is happening in the country's education sector. In case you're joining in, I'm your host, Nelson Zulu, and my guest this morning is Mr. Godwin Maseka, who is Director of Public Relations from Zanut, as well as getting also to understand a lot of things that do happen. But In case you are wondering where to catch us live from, Top Star, that is 106, Go TV channel 25, DSTV channel 274, Facebook, and as well as YouTube. Now, one thing that has also been topical, even as we got to clock into the new year, was Zambia wanting to go the route of Ghana, Sierra Leone, Philippines, as well as the United States of America, among other countries, in introducing licentiate exams for teachers through the Zambia Teaching Council. Well, anything that we're likely to pick out from this in terms of the positives?
Thank you. Licentiate exams are meant to ensure that we maintain the sanity and the integrity of the standard that we require in the Ministry of Education. The question that we need to ask ourselves, why licentiate exams now? When you compare yesteryears and this time around, there's a distinction in terms of how many institutions are training teachers. And you discover that a good number of these institutions, in particular private school, have actually put their efforts together to ensure that we produce as many teachers as possible in order for us to meet what is expected. However, there is a compromise. And that compromise should be checked through an independent body. This independent body, therefore, is the Teaching Council of Zambia. So, one thing that the public need to appreciate is this. Before you are admitted to any college, there is a criteria that is put in place. And this criteria would tell you to say, for instance, for those that are going to enroll in a diploma course, you are supposed to have 5 O-levels. And these 5 O-levels will speak to what is it that you are going to specialize in. If they tell you that you want to go and specialize in mathematics, they will even add. They will tell you 5 O-levels and a merit in mathematics, because that's what you want to go and specialize, or a distinction. Now, here is a challenge that we have found. When you visit some of these colleges, you're going to discover that the 5 O-level is not adhered to. They will tell students, come and enroll because you have 3, and then as you'll be learning, you'll be able to rewrite in the process. Already, you have compromised. You have broken the law. The law says 5 O-levels before you allow a person to enter into your college. When you allow a person with 3 O-levels or with 4 O-levels, you have already torn apart the law that stipulates the standard that is expected. Now, as these students are doing the training of teaching, they are equally going to grade 12 to go and rewrite what they did not do so well. What are you talking about? At the time these students are going to graduate, what time were they in grade 12? Because they would have only made 5 O-levels at the time they would have graduated compared to the time they were enrolled in the college. So if we go by standard, even if this candidate completes the teaching training after rewriting for 2 years, that candidate would have been as good as having started the training after making sure that he or she has attained the 5 O-levels that are required. What is it that we are talking about? You and me would have taken note of the PAC deliberations that took place last year. A liberation of about 9 teachers who were recruited, in particular Chinsari district. What were the findings? The findings were that these teachers who were recruited wrongly because they did not have the 5 O-levels. Now let's go to the benchmark. Where was the problem before this recruitment started? 1, these teachers were wrongly entered into the colleges. To make matters worse, they were entertained to an extent where they could not rewrite while they were in college, and now they made the situation even worse. At the time of selecting who would be the student amongst the 30,496 teachers that we recruited, they found themselves having been picked despite them having the 5 O-levels. What are we now noticing from there? We are saying there is already a gap there, which gap should have been avoided at the time of entry. And we ended up going to an extent of picking the people who did not have the 5 levels on the expense of the majority who have genuine qualifications. What is it that the Teaching Council therefore is talking about? We need therefore to put valves to check the quality of these teachers who are going to be trained. When they are trained now, they are supposed to be off-roaded on the market. Are they qualitable teachers that will handle our learners or our children with the dignity that the education sector deserves.
But still question to say, despite us going the licentiate way, it's not a lasting solution to the challenges that teachers do face.
The Teaching Council of Zambia is put there. One of its mandate is to ensure that they check on the quality and the conduct of the teachers in general. We are licensed to ensure that I teach. If I don't have the teaching license, I'm not accredited to Teaching Council of Zambia, and therefore I'm not mandated to practice in Zambia. And therefore what we are saying is this: the Teaching Council needs to up the game by making sure that even as we are talking about entry into colleges, there is need for the Ministry of Education to mandate Teaching Council of Zambia to also take part in ensuring that those that are going to be entered into the college are the right staff. Phase 3. And secondly, we are saying that yes, Teaching Council of Zambia has not been here for many years. It was just recently established. It should be about 4 or 5 years. And I'm sure now they are consolidating their establishment. And in consolidating their establishment, what is it that we are talking about? The checks and balances in terms of the quality that we desire as a nation is vested in the Teaching Council of Zambia through the Teaching Service Commission. And therefore, what we are saying is that licentiate should not be misunderstood to imply it is meant for the serving teachers. The licentiate exams are intended for would-be entries into the Ministry of Education. And therefore, as a labor movement, in particular Zambia National Union of Teachers, what is it that we are saying? Yes, we welcome this move, but before the Teaching Council puts whatever they would want to put in place, they need to invite all the stakeholders to look at how are these licentiate exams going to be conducted. We need to have a voice so that we do not subject our would-be teachers to strenuous treatment to an extent where we may end up making those that are called as teachers to get frustrated. We would want to see licentiate exams purely looking at how best they would ensure that the mechanism to bring sanity are put in place.
Let's get to also get your comment in terms of the recruitment of teachers. We saw recently about over 69,000 applicants applying for the teacher recruitment exercise that was catered for 4,500. That was under 2023, and we saw that the Ministry of Education extended this number to about 7,221 teachers that were recruited in the year 2024. Your thought in terms of how the recruitment process was, and if at all we're making any progress in terms of achieving the targets of the SDG number 4 under the United Nations by 2030.
Thank you so very much. First and foremost, we must understand that as a labor movement, we want to commend the government. Half a loaf of bread is better than none at all. What are we saying? The recruitment of 7,221 is yet another milestone. And we commend government for the job well done. You have asked me, are we satisfied with the mechanisms that are put in place vis-a-vis recruitment of our teachers? The question should be answered in this manner. First and foremost, this recruitment process is actually decentralized. All the 116 are given a status called Human Resource Management Committees. The Human Resource Management Committee is headed by a responsible officer called the District Education Board Secretary. Now, the District Education Board Secretary manages this committee to ensure that there is accountability and transparency. Those that sit on this committee, amongst them is the Anti-Corruption Committee, Anti-Corruption Commission. And the other security wings where perhaps we may not have the anti-corruption, they equally sit there to check, are we really picking the right persons to be engaged by the Ministry of Education? So therefore, what comes next is those to be employed, they choose themselves where they want to go and offer a service. You want to be in Wapula, you cannot apply for Lusaka and expect to be in Wapula. You are saying, me, I want to be in this place because that's where my desire is. And those people who applied were Pula, Northwestern, whatever part of Zambia, they apply to those districts and they are selected competitively looking at the parameters and conditionalities that are set by Teaching Service Commission. Now, when these are selected at district level, these names are uplifted to the second stage. This second stage goes to the provincial committee that now looks at the selected names. When these selected names are done, these names are sent down to the Ministry of Education, and the technocrats at the Ministry of Education, spearheaded by the permanent secretaries, they will cross-check the names that have been selected, and the teaching service finally will look at it and endorse it to ensure that those that have been recommended are given appointment letters. What is it that we are saying? Following this system to the latter, yes, we expect transparency and accountability. But where do we have the flaws? It calls for integrity of the responsible officers who have been mandated to carry out these recruitment exercises.
And among the flaws that have come out so far is that others have attributed the recruitment to corruption, where they're saying the names that were published under a newspaper are contrary to those that are there at provincial level.
Here's the situation. In this era, anything is feasible. Sometimes allegations and the reality were two different things altogether on the ground. Because the question is, how many people sit on the human resource management committees? How many people sit on the provincial human resource committees? And therefore, there is a very good saying in Bemba, what is it that I'm talking about? We are saying, yes, look at the numbers, 69,000 against 7,221. It is a small number. Those that have been left, the number is big. And what is it that we can just urge our teachers to be? Please take heart to those that have not been given an opportunity. You check the list once again. You are going to discover that some who were left in 2013 have been offered the chance. Now ask yourself, you completed in 2010, there is one there who completed in 2010 and has been recruited in 2024, 14 years. What is it that we are saying? Arising from that situation, there is need for the Ministry of Education, therefore, to ensure that we put yet another program, fast track, to ensure that those that left the training colleges a long time ago are fast tracked to be brought at the level where they will be able to cope with the current transformations that have taken place from the time they completed. If somebody completed in 2010, there is a very serious distinction in terms of methodologies from 2010 and 2024, which is 14 years distinction. That variance, that gap, needs to be covered by making sure that those that completed at such a long time are brought to speed through the Department of Education for standards, to ensure that those are brought to speed so that they are not seen to have lagged behind.
And that's one of the concern that is there. And I was driving to that question, where we've seen that a lot of those that have been left out, for instance, I know about 5 or so for now,
yes,
that are actually claiming to say, you see, for me, I finished my teaching course in 2008, 2010, 2012, somewhere there. But I was shocked that my neighbor that was done with school in 2021 being given employment, and then I was left out.
Here's the issue that the public need to appreciate. Teachers are of different categories. We have early education, we have primary, and we have secondary. Now, here's this distinction that the public ought to know. When you are talking about the current statistics in terms of the teaching fraternity, the teaching fraternity is faced with a challenge of teachers in natural sciences, teachers in mathematics, teachers in technology. Now, here is the situation. This year, the Ministry of Education has given prominence to teachers of mathematics, science, and technology. Why? when you look at the statistics in the Ministry of Education, a good number of our teachers fall under Department of Social Sciences. And therefore, here's the situation which may be tricky. If you have done natural sciences and you have done social sciences, you may have completed your college in 2015, majored in history. Not that we don't care about history, but those that have history background are in a majority compared to those that have done mathematics or science. Now, at the time they are doing the recruitment, statistics is collected in terms of what is it that we want in terms of the teachers that should fill this gap. From the statistics, we discover that a good number of our teachers we are lacking currently are those in the school of natural sciences, mathematics and technology. So the ministry ended up giving a chance to those. So if a teacher completed in 2021 and he majored in science or he majored in science, the probability of picking this teacher who has science, because there are very few, is higher compared to a teacher who could have completed in 2015. Why? Because he's falling in the category of the majority. So that distinction, when well understood, you will be able to see that, okay, we are able to appreciate why perhaps this person has been left on the expense of the other. Not because of corruption, but the intricacies in terms of what is it that the ministry requires as of now.
In case you're joining us, this is the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. On a Monday, I'm your host, Nelson Zula, and my guest is Mr. Godwin Maseka from the Zambia National Union of Teachers. You too can give us your perspective in terms of what we're discussing by simply giving us a call via the numbers that are scrolling on your screen, as well as leaving us with a comment via our Facebook platform. Now, let's also take a look at one of the historical issues. Even in the year 2022, we saw the recruitment of 30,496 teachers. But one of the issues that came out was that even with this recruitment, issues relating to upgrade, teacher upgrade from another level, despite being part of the system, is more of a stagnant situation that you could say you found yourself between a hard place and a hard rock. How are we looking at it from the union perspective as Zambia National Union of Teachers to ensure that this issue is actually put to bed?
Thank you so very much. Upgrade is a heartbreaking thing. Why? When we are talking about upgrade, allow me to simplify it in another term. Upgrade implies promotion. That's what upgrade means. What is the gist of this upgrade that we are talking about? Upgrade, it tells you that you start work as a diploma holder, for instance. With passage of time, you are saying, I want to sharpen my skills of teaching. You go to obtain a degree. Now, as these people are going to do these things, they are spending money. They graduate as degree holders. At the same time with those that entered direct entry as degree holders, they all graduate at the same day. Recruitment comes. This one from the direct entry, perhaps taught by this teacher who went for upgrade and they have graduated at the same time. This teacher went direct to the university, who was a student of this teacher, also graduated, is absorbed. As a degree holder, you go straight into salary scale I, which is management scale. This teacher was teaching you, who has also got a degree, still remains in salary scale G. Now, this teacher, first and foremost, for him to have gone to go and sharpen his skills, has taken an initiative to improve the quality. This teacher has spent his own personal money through loans. We came from a background of debt choking the teaching fraternity. It's not that teachers are careless. Some of the issues that borders on debt, indebtedness amongst the teachers is as a result of the teachers wishing to upgrade themselves as a measure to upskill themselves so that they will be able to deliver effectively and efficiently. Now, the student who was being taught by this teacher goes to salary scale I. The teacher who was the teacher of this student, now a teacher, is still in a lower scale. It pains to see such scenarios. Now, allow me to give a narrative of what transpired this year, the 2023. Before the teaching, the recruitment process, some of the parameters that were put in place by the Teaching Service Commission were, one, there was an internal upgrade that was done. A total of 2,500 teachers who were sitting with different scales have been pushed up to leave the space for G, salary scale G, meaning that although people would not come out and say, yes, I've been upgraded, but the total number that has been upscaled in terms of those that have degrees and relevant qualification for upgrading is 2,500. So they created space of 2,500 on which a good number of these newly recruited teachers were placed to give a tune of 7,221. Our cry as a labor movement, Minister of Education, thank you very much for what you have done. But when we look at the statistics of how many teachers are supposed to be upgraded, you agree that the numbers has actually increased to a tune of almost 20,000 that have upgraded. So if we say we remove 2,500, we still have a big chunk of teachers who are crying, who are craving for being upgraded. And it may come to closer to 17,000, still having higher qualification, not yet upgraded. Our appeal as Zambia National Union of Teachers to the listening government is that let us look at our teachers, those that spent money in order to upskill themselves, not for selfish gain, but for the purpose of ensuring that quality is put at another level. How do parents feel today? Look at the social media. The social media today is flooded with congratulatory messages. My son, my daughter, my niece, my what, you are what. Parents are happy because their children have scored 1. How many parents have pushed the results on social media where children have gotten 9? Maybe just a summary. Have you seen parents who have posted their children have gotten 9s? Very few, exactly, if any. That excitement which comes in the parents to say, my child has done well, is not by accident. It is coming from this teacher who is having sleepless nights to ensure that somebody's child is pushed. There is yet another saying that teachers are like signposts that always points to the destination, but they will never reach the destination themselves. That narrative should be changed.
How do you change it?
We are going to have the narrative changed. If I am a teacher, I have taught a child, and the child has to be in salary scale I, and I remain as a signpost to have pointed my child who I was teaching to become a teacher to a destination, and yet have failed to reach that destination. The system is being unfair. But I know that it's the resource basket which is actually hindering. And they were clarion call. Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, Honorable Stumbeko, you are a listening government. And I want to appeal to our Republican President. Your Excellency, look at your teachers. We want our teachers to continue giving in the quality education that is going to make the country transform. Our humble appeal. Is it feasible we can find the resources? I know the government is actually going through rough times. Our wish is that we can have the debt restructuring resolved as quickly as possible so that some of the resources can go and be pushed towards ensuring that our teachers are given a motivation for them to push further. Maybe let me add something there. The ministry is undergoing a phase of curriculum transformation.
We're coming to that.
Okay.
But we're coming to that as even as if we are also in our dying minutes, but we're coming to that. But for now, I would also like to get a perception from you. We've had stakeholders that have said, even this recruitment is not something to celebrate about. Reason being, the year 2022, we recruited 30,496 teachers. And this year, we've recruited 7,221 teachers. But when you look at the issue relating to the average pupil ratio currently, you find that at primary school level, we've got 1 to 58. And at secondary level, we've got 1 to 38. And then when you look at the standard, at primary level, you're supposed to have 1 to 45 as the standard. and 1 to 35 as a standard in terms of secondary level. Are we making any progress? Because with this huge number, it still indicates to say we still have a huge gap in terms of teachers that need to be looked at.
Thank you very much. A coin always has two sides. In our Zambian context, we'll say there is a head and a tail. One, what could have pushed the numbers of learners to be high? The environment itself is quite appetizing. Why? Because of the policy of free education. A good number of those learners who were sitting home have now found themselves space in the education sector. And this number now has actually swollen up compared to the numbers of teachers that were a bit stagnant. Now, what is it that we are talking about? What we are saying, yes, the process is ongoing. It's not an end to itself. All we wish to appeal is that, yes, government has still made intentions that even in 2024, recruitment is going to take place. It's not a matter of us looking at, no, employment has been created, but we are looking at what is the purpose of these teachers being brought on board. The purpose is to ensure that we reduce teacher-pupil ratio to an extent where when we reach 1 to 35, what is it that the public ought to appreciate? We are saying you have a class of 35 pupils handled by a teacher, meaning this teacher has ample time to prepare the lesson plans. This teacher has ample time to mark the way for, and this teacher has got ample time to ensure that he's able to revise with the learners at the end of it, or pumping in the excellence that is required in the Ministry of Education.
Well, let's get to close by looking at last year government's validation to review the country's education curriculum. This has been described as a game changer in terms of blending the theory as well as the practical skills, but concerns were that, you see, when you look at also taking up this issue relating to the curriculum, is that the implementation might be a flop, simply because some stakeholders such as parents as well as those in the teaching fraternity don't really understand the gist behind this issue.
Okay. Here's the scenario that we also need to appreciate. Curriculum transformation. What is it that we want to transform? One, what are we dealing with currently in terms of the curriculum that we have? We have a two-type of a curriculum that we have now. This is called vocation career pathway as well as academic career pathway. Under vocation, people must appreciate that when the technocrats were drafting this curriculum that we are using currently, they said we must never disadvantage any child. Even those that may not be good in mathematics, science. Can we give them sports? Can we give them art? Can we give them food and nutrition? At the end of the day, every child was catered for. What is academic? Academic, you're saying those that are academically gifted. Whether we like it or not, we are not the same. There are those that are gifted. When you look, you give them mathematics questions in seconds, they produce answers. Those are gifted, yes, and we appreciate them. Regardless of you being average, God has got the purpose why He has created us that way. Now, the findings that we enacted this curriculum in 2013, we're supposed to review our curriculum every after 5 years, 10 years. But from 2013 to date, we have already passed the 10 years, we have never reviewed. Now, the review has indicated that majority of the education stakeholders have pointed out that the type of curriculum we are having is bookish. Where bookish shall imply, we are not doing too much practical. At the end of the day, we are making our learners, when they graduate, they want to go and line up, looking forward employment. But we want a scenario to change. The narrative should be what we are going to give the learners when they leave the school. They are supposed to be innovative. They are supposed to be creative. They are not supposed to go and line up looking for employment. So the practicality aspect of the education curriculum is what people are crying for. Even as we are talking about the validation of this curriculum, Hopefully, it is supposed to be implemented in full starting 2025. What is our expectation as a labor movement is that, one, the narratives and the transformation and changes that we have made in here, in the absence of the realia, when you talk about realia, the teaching and learning aids, if we don't have them, we are going to go back into talking about bookish. Where is it hinging? This curriculum that we are talking about, it is hinging on what we are referring to as STEM. Where STEM is that, let us look at the issues of technology. Let us look at the issues of sciences. Let us look at the issues of mathematics. And of course, the other subjects will fall on board. Why? In today's age, we are talking about digital. In the absence of computer, I'm telling you, we cannot thrive. You can operate the farm as an individual without you being there, but the whole system is automated technologically. And therefore, what is our humble appeal to this curriculum transformation? One, it required huge sums of money to be implemented. Leaving the curriculum to the government on its own, it's going to flop. But is it the desire? No. Our desire, like the labor movement and other education stakeholders, is that can we change the narrative? For once, we want to see engineers who will be able to produce small vehicles. We want to see engineers who will be able to produce plows. We want to see engineers that will be able to fix equipment in the hospital. Not where, when the equipment gets broken in the hospitals, everything comes to a standstill. And yet, we have graduates, and yet, we have professors. We are abusing the names. We are abusing the names. Let's have professors who are practical. Let's have doctors who are going to be practical. And this is why I must equally call upon the Minister of Education that please, let us keep the distinction to the Minister of Education and uphold the status and integrity of education. When we start flooding the nation with doctors who have not done anything, we are diluting the quality of education that we must be talking about. When you are a doctor, be relevant and be able to say, yes, this person is a doctor because he's able to add value to humanity. If you are called a doctor by name because you are going to pay for this document, you are misdirecting the nation. Can the nation be proud to say, I am a doctor, I am the one who invented this, because of my invention, this title is bestowed on me. I must not celebrate doctorate because I've bought it. I must celebrate doctorate when I look at a tractor moving. Yes, are you able to see the tractor moving there? It's because of me. You have added value, not you buying a qualification which has not added anything, but you are happy. Honorable Minister of Education, the Higher Education Authority, we call upon you that let the integrity of the documents that we are getting in this republic be of value. Otherwise, at the end of the day, each and every person in this country is going to say, I will just go and buy.
The conclusion in 30 seconds.
In conclusion, allow me to begin by saying thank you so very much to the government for having yet given a milestone of recruitment of teachers. To the recruited teachers, please, let us be where we chose to go and teach. The migration from rural setups wanting to come into town is just going to make our country vulnerable. There is no condition that is permanent. What we need to appreciate is that regardless of where you're going to be, one day you will definitely be transferred and you're going to enjoy. After all, majority of the opportunities in the Ministry of Education are actually found in the rural setup. Ultimately, we would want to say thank you so very much for Camnet TV, for being handy, being friendly, and for disseminating information that means well to Zambia. And we say thank you for giving Zambia National Union of Teachers this opportunity to participate this morning.
Well, thank you so much to Mr. Godwin Maseka for having breakfast with us this morning, as well as those comments that have come through via our Facebook platform, and those that have been watching us from wherever you've been watching us from. It has been Nelson Zulu, as well as my guest, Mr. Godwin Maseka. Hopefully you've picked one or two things, but do remember to stay safe, for we still have the pandemic of the cholera outbreak within ourselves, and it is only important that we need to keep those hygiene standards in check. Right, it's been the Camnet TV Breakfast Show on a Monday, and be positive, keep it on Camnet TV, not just another channel. It's bye for now.